Republican incumbent Ann Wagner facing off against Democratic challenger Jill Shoup. Pollsters have been calling this a toss-up, and we'll get to some results coming in just a few minutes. 5 on Your Side has team coverage tonight from both campaigns. Let's begin with Art Holliday, who's live in Baldwin.
Mike, as we are constantly reminded, there is nothing normal about 2020, and that's certainly reflected on how Republican Congresswoman Ann Wagner is spending her evening on election night. Normally, there would be a voting return party, but not tonight. We're told Wagner is at her Baldwin home, where she will learn whether she will serve a 5th term in Congress. This morning, Wagner said if she defeats Democrat Jill Shoup, she's anxious to get back to Washington to begin working on a stimulus package to help struggling families and businesses. Wagner also told reporters the goal is for the economy to recover and to get back to its pre-pandemic success. As we await early returns on the 2nd congressional race, we return it back to the studio.
All right, Art, thank you. Her challenger, Democrat Jill Shoup, will hold her rally virtually tonight. And 5 on Your Side's PJ Randawa is live outside Creve Coeur City Hall with more from her campaign.
Well, Mike, as you mentioned, this is a race being watched around the country because of what it could mean for Democrats in the U.S. House. Now, we just heard from Senator Shoup a little while ago. She says she's very pleased with the high voter turnout, and she says it confirms what she's hearing from people who live in this district, that they want a change in representation. Now, we know this is going to be a close race, and we are hearing that it could be a toss-up. It could go either way. We know Ann Wagner won her last race by just 4 points in 2018. So it's still unclear what's going to happen tonight, but we'll be here as the votes are counted and come back in. Back to you, Mike.
All right, PJ, thanks very much. Early results. This is early voting. Jill Shoup has 59% to Ann Wagner's 39%. Stick with 5 on Your Side and NBC News tonight. We're tracking the results from close to 300 races, along, of course, with the presidential race. And you can also catch any results on KSDK.com and the 5 on Your Side app. And we'll have expanded results and break down the races starting at 10. And don't forget, Casey Nolan and Kay Quinn are live all night long on KSDK.com. I'll see you again in 30 minutes with another update.
Welcome back. We are live with election analysis and the latest results. I'm here with 5 on Your Side reporter Casey Nolan, who's in the other room. He's in the other studio. Separated by studios, Casey, yep, which is a good thing in a pandemic. And you have that amazing board that has been just performing wonderfully tonight with all kinds of results. We had some returns for the Ann Wagner, Jill Shoup race.
We do. I tell you, I have a newfound respect for Vanna White. You're not seeing them on the slate there. They're just coming in. We'll get that updated. A lot of these things are automatic, but let me just tell you, there are a lot of steps being taken, as there always has been. But I think maybe just a little extra step here and there before we're pushing out information.
Fully live with it. Gotcha.
Yeah. So sometimes they're not. This is the governor's race. You're seeing results are starting to trickle in. Cole County looking red so far. Jackson County looking blue, or Kansas City, St. Louis. Cape County, having grown up in Scott County, I can just about tell you, I'm not in the prediction business, but most likely Cape County does not eventually go blue for Nicole Callaway, but you never know. I'm presuming that's a lot of the early voting that's coming in there. And so, okay, so what we were able to get, hang on one second. We got, what's going on behind the scenes here is, take camera 4, I don't know if that's capable, but Mike Bush and Colin Jeffrey, one of our producer extraordinaires, are looking at stuff. Okay, so we might be able to hear Colin's mic. Tell us what you're seeing, or if you're talking about.
We're just double checking numbers.
Double checking numbers. Okay,
so
we're
going to be doing an update very soon, and we're getting one set of numbers, and we're double checking to make sure what we have is accurate.
Is there anything you can say for sure so far about Shoup Wagner from St. Louis County? I know we're gonna have to results from St. Charles and Jefferson County to get the complete picture, but most of that is coming from St. Louis County.
Yeah, I mean, it's so early, but the early votes show Shoup with a big lead, 59% to 39%.
And so we think that is potentially the mail-in, the early absentee in person.
It's 81,000 votes for Shoup and 54,000 for Wag.
Okay, and then we also know from Abby's reporting that that's a fraction of the early voting as well. I think they had something like 900,000 early votes in St. Louis County, so that's very early numbers.
Very early, and we got a long night to go.
That's what I was going to say, Casey. I mean, we're kind of pushing the envelope here at 8:04. There was a 78% voter turnout in St. Louis County. It's going to take a while to count these votes. And, you know, you can't rush democracy. Every vote needs to be counted. It takes time. And, you know, we should all be prepared to wait and make sure all of the votes are counted.
Absolutely. I was talking back and forth with Abby earlier. She's, done the no to vote segments in the weeks leading up and talking about when do they actually get to start voting, counting the early absentee in person, the mail-in. That all just started today in St. Louis County. A lot of it just started around both sides of the river, in the last hour or so. So we've got a lot of work to be done. You're absolutely right.
And some states don't even start counting the mail-in or the absentee until after all of the in-person voting has been counted.
Yeah, it could be a long night around the country for sure.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
I think we have another guest available, Kay. Reverend Darrell Gray, if he is. Wait, hang on. Two people talk to him one time. Sam, go ahead. Okay, he's coming. So if you're going to recognize, I have a feeling, Reverend Gray when you see him. Reverend Gray, in his official capacity, first of all, welcome to the show. There he is, Reverend Gray. You've joined us. You graciously joined us in the primaries, and now you're back in the general election. We appreciate it. Aside from being your obvious day job of Reverend, it's in the title, you also have a position with the Democratic Party, I believe, treasurer or secretary?
I am the secretary of the Missouri Democratic Party.
My apologies.
It's perfectly all right.
And of course, you're no stranger to activism in the St. Louis area as well. We've talked to you over the past few months now. Time flies. You were there in the now infamous exchange on Portland Place with the McCloskeys and protesters.
Right.
We'll unless there's any update you want to give us, we'll skip the particulars of that for tonight. I know a lot of people see that a lot of different ways. But nevertheless, you are a man who not only has official capacities, but you are on the streets with folks, talking to them. You know what their passions are, and I guess what we want to know from you tonight is, do you think those passions, those concerns, those demands will be expressed in their votes today?
I think there's no question about it. I think if we look at what has taken place from George Floyd's death, people have turned protest into politics. You see the increase of young people who have come off of Twitter, have come off of Facebook, and have gone to the polls. And all of the data that I've seen, all of the polling that I've seen indicates that young people between the ages of 18 and 30, racial justice has been their motivating factor for coming out in record numbers in this particular election season here in Missouri and definitely across the nation. People want to see a fairer Missouri and a fairer America as it relates to criminal justice. They want to see criminal justice reform. And I think you are going to see that play out throughout the country.
Okay, I'm going to put a pin in something you said just there, because when we talk about criminal justice and reform, a lot of people point to Joe Biden in 1994 and not in a good way. So let's put a pin in that for just a second. I want to go back to what you said about coming off of Twitter into the voting booth. That kind of goes back to Kay's analogy earlier in the evening, which is the kind of the sports metaphor, kind of coming off the sidelines perhaps and into the fight. Is that how you see Twitter, and do you think it's going to be the difference maybe between, say, 2020 and 1968? Because we've been dealing with these issues for, well, hundreds of years.
No, I think it is. I think if you look at the exit polling across this country, and people have asked folk what are their top 3 issues, and I think for the Democrats, the Biden campaign, people have followed that. It has definitely been racial injustice has been in the top 3. And so you're absolutely right. It has been a motivating factor. I think that social media has played a huge part in educating voters. But I think young people continue to remind us in the election of Barack Obama and others, well, we're not going to vote like our grandparents. We're not going to vote in the past. We're going to vote for the future. And so I do believe that has been the greatest motivating factor as it relates to young people. And they're definitely getting off the sidelines. They've moved from the streets, which is what we had hoped for since the murder of George Floyd and the death of Breonna Taylor. And it has definitely manifested itself in the numbers that we're seeing across the country.
Then how do you make the case, going back to get that pin we set with Joe Biden and the crime bill back in the 1990s, how do you make the case to younger voters that he is for the future after 47 years in politics, as we've heard the Trump campaign say so often? It seems like he would be the candidate of the past. How did you motivate young people in Missouri, or do you think you were able to?
You know, the reality of this is that a lot of young people, and I also chair the Progressive Caucus for the Democratic Party, had a lot of reluctancy going in with this particular ticket. Obviously, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warner were names, candidates that stood out among the youth. But once former Vice President Joe Biden got the nomination, I think young people said, we're going to go with him. We're not going to forget history. We're not going to forget the words that Vice President Biden uttered in the past. We're going to hold him accountable to what he is saying now. But the other side of that is, I think that Donald Trump has helped young people make up their minds. They don't believe that Donald Trump is going to be the president moving forward based upon the words that he has used himself to push the agenda of criminal justice reform, as much as they believe that a Biden-Harris administration will.
How important is the Harris in the Biden-Harris?
Oh, well, for African Americans, it's huge. I mean, historically speaking, the first African American female on a major ticket. She is articulate, she is charismatic, she is educated. She comes as a former prosecutor, former attorney general. Once again, in the community that had some angst too. But we're confident that who Senator Harris is now and who we hope Vice President Harris will be in the future is somebody that will stand firm in criminal justice reform, issues that talk about diversion programs, issues that will hold police accountable. I think that those are the things that we've heard her say. We're taking her at her word, and we believe that she's an excellent model, excellent role model, excellent symbol, not just for African Americans in this country, but for Americans in this country.
And of course, if we think back to the primary, the conventional wisdom is that black voters handed Joe Biden the lead that he needed to get ahead long before he had picked a running mate. Reverend Darrell Gray, thank you so much for your time, your insight, your wisdom. We appreciate you joining us for our second election in a row. Thank you, sir. We hope to have you back again soon.
It is a pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, sir. Kay, I'll send it back over to you because I believe, as you kind of start to see, there are some more colors are starting to trickle in here, but there's not enough to really break down. We've got, as Mike and Colin said, a long night ahead of us when it comes to numbers.
Yes, we do.
Kick it back over to you for now.
All right, sounds good. So we were talking about the minority vote with Reverend Gray there. Pew Research Center survey data spanning more than 2 decades shows that the Democratic Party maintains an advantage among Black, Hispanic, and Asian American registered voters. Our Ann Allred sat down with an expert on the minority vote.
Joining us, we have Dr. Adriano Udani, an associate professor of political science from the University of Missouri, St. Louis, lending your expertise to us when we talk about the minority voter. When we talk about Latino voters, they outnumber any other minority as far as how large of a voting bloc that they make up this year.
Yeah.
So what are the issues, the top issues when they're going to the polls?
Dr. Stephen Nuno and Adrian Pantoy have this great national survey called Latino Decisions. And so the top 5 issues for Latino immigrants. So these are immigrants who are naturalized as citizens and then also native born citizens. If you look at their top 5 policy views, they're very similar in the sense that they are interested in how we are responding to the coronavirus, lowering healthcare costs, addressing racism and discrimination, creating more jobs, and immigration reform. And so immigration reform is very low, relatively speaking, this year as opposed to other years.
And let's talk about the Black male voting group. They are crucial to Joe Biden when it comes to important states like Pennsylvania and Michigan. Talk about that a little bit.
Compared to 2016, Biden's doing a little better in terms of states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and the Rust Belt. But I think the Black men that I want to highlight, if you remember in the second debate in the town hall, a young Black man stood up and said to Biden, essentially, you're not Black, but what do you say to young Black voters who see you as voting for you as further participation in a system that has continually failed to protect them? And I think that is the key thing here, is reaching the young Black men and Black women voters in St. Louis and also nationwide. I think that language of systemic racism, institutional racism, that's a language that I think young Black voters are interested about because it concerns their lives.
How has mail-in voting, because of the pandemic, affected the minority voter?
The mail-in vote has incorporated new voters, which is exciting, especially those who are ages 18 to 29. And so that, and also they're capturing people who didn't participate in 2016. And so that, again, returning to my original point about voters of color, this has helped incorporate many new Black voters, many new Latinx voters, as well as Asian Americans in those states that offer mail-in voting. So I'm very happy to see such an energized, interested electorate.
Dr. Udani, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay.
All right, Casey, numbers, numbers, numbers. That's what people want. Returns, they want to see the results. And we have some new numbers in the District 2 race between Jill Shoup and Ann Wagner.
Okay, there we go. So this is 50% to 47%, with 3% going to the Libertarian candidate, Ann Wagner leading But now, of course, at this point in the night, Kay, what matters is how much of the vote is in.
Correct.
And frankly, what part of the areas are reporting is, because certain areas lean more heavily to one candidate or the other.
Exactly.
Colin Jeffrey is here in the studio with me. Colin, are you able to, he's been trying to go through the numbers. As we've already said, county officials, city officials, statewide, they've got their work cut out for them tonight. But Colin's been trying to get through there. We've got about 6,200 or so votes in so far. We think those are the early absentee votes?
Well, that's some of them, but St. Louis County is having a small issue with their website, so the results keep going up and down.
Oh.
We also have the first dump in from the city as well.
Okay, that tracks with what Abby was just saying a minute ago. Website is down, heads up. Also, several thousand absentee mail-in ballots still have to be counted since they just arrived today. So
Very much expected, by the way. In past elections, we have the technology doesn't want to work when we want it to work real quick. So
no, absolutely.
it just
Okay.
we'll be getting them as soon as they're available.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Kay.
Yeah.
You want to go back to Anita? Is Anita in the chair again in the other studio? She is.
I sure am.
Boy, so, okay. Not a lot to go on just yet, but from what you see so far, are you able to glean anything from the numbers that we do have?
It's hard to say with so few numbers in. I went back and looked, and in 2018, Ann Wagner and Court Van Ostrom were basically tied 49 to 49% in St. Louis County. So for the District 2 race, I'm really going to be watching St. Louis County and how that goes, and if Jill Shoup can pull ahead.
So, okay, so just let me go back. Let's see. Kay was impressed earlier. I'm going to let her down here at some point.
Your cool new map.
Yeah, right. And then I had to make it complicated by throwing this extra graphic in. But so, okay, so here's Missouri's 2nd Congressional District. All of South St. Louis County, most of West St. Louis County, a little bit of southeastern St. Charles County, a little bit of northern Jefferson County. So run that back for us again, Anita. You're saying that the last time when she, being Ann Wagner, the Republican incumbent, eked out a win of about 4 points over the Democrat, she was actually tied in the St. Louis County area. Is that right?
That's right, and she led in the St. Charles and Jefferson County areas. And we'd expect her to lead in St. Charles and Jefferson County again tonight. So if you're in the Jill Shoup camp or the Ann Wagner camp, and we will certainly be watching those St. Louis County results. So if you're Jill Shoup or Ann Wagner, it's really, I think, going to be who gets the biggest margin there, and if it can overcome a deficit that Jill Shoup might have in St. Charles and Jefferson counties.
All right, well, we will be watching St. Louis County along with the others as well. Anita, thank you very much. We appreciate your analysis as always. Kay, I will send it back to you, I believe, unless Samantha tells us to go otherwhere.
We have about a minute, but we're going to be tossing it to Mike Bush. He's going to have an update on election results, Casey.
Okay.
And then we'll be coming back. So this is what we're going to be doing, just so our viewers know, over and over throughout the evening. We're going to be going back and forth between updates from Mike Bush and interviews and updates on election results right here on KSDK.com. Remember, you can also go to the 5 on Your Side app and get the latest information there. We'll be right back.